Hello, everybody. We are live. We have different watch parties on different parts of Latin America. We have Darius, right? We have Darius right here. I'm having some feedback. I hope you are not hearing my voice with echo. So we have a watch party in Chile. We have Ezequiel right there. Ezequiel, can you say hi? We have also a watch party in Argentina. We have Guro and Maru over there. Hello. We have watch party from around. We also have a watch party in Bogota, Colombia, with Valeria, the host from Rockstart. But hopefully she will be able to join. She was having some. She was having some connectivity issues. So, okay, without further ado, I'll introduce you to Darius Contractor. He's here with us today to talk us through the exponential mission. I for Latin America, this product Latin America project in Mexico and over the region. And this is an event sponsored by mixpanel. They were an incredible part of making this possible. So thank you to our sponsors as well.
I'm sorry, my connection's not perfect here. Should I kick into it?
Yes, please, Darius, go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm Darius. I'm uh I'm done growth for now 20 years in my career. Started out in social and then went on to a number of other places, but we'll get into that in just a second. So the title of this presentation is a
¿Se perdió el audio?
Sí, parece que sí. Le aviso a Darius, un segundo. Darius, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but we lost your audio. We can see you and we can see your camera, but we cannot hear you. Maybe you can try to log back in. Sorry, as you can all see, this is this is live, so this stuff happens. Hopefully, we can manage to fix it soon. Darius is logging in back in soon.
Hello? Do you have me?
Yes,
Hello?
we have you now.
Okay, great. Cool. Okay. So, I'm gonna be talking about user psychology. And so one way I like to kick it off is with this kind of fun exercise that I do. And so the way I start is encouraging everyone to think about their own level of psych. Could you put your hand either like below your head for like a low psych or above your head for high psych? How psyched are you right now, like 0 to 100? Okay. I'm seeing some like 70s, some hundreds, some even over hundreds. Okay, great. So people are pretty psyched coming in. That's great. So let's go through this story and see how that changes. So this is from a teen fiction app called Hooked. When you open up the app, you see this dark staircase. And Tiffany says, "Do you hear that?" Mom says, "Hear what?" "There's a baby crying." Mom says, "I'm not home. Wait until I get back." "It's coming from the basement," says Tiff. "Don't go down there, Tiff." "What? Why not?" "There's something about your father I haven't told you." "Mom, there's a baby. I can hear it." "Honey, please ignore it until I get home." "How am I supposed to do that?" "It's getting louder." "Don't go down there. I'm warning you." OMG, Mom, are you not grasping the situation here? There's a random baby crying in the basement. I know. Just stay in your room. Hold on, I think it stopped. I don't hear anything. Good. I'm going downstairs to check. OMG, WTF. Tap to see image. Now, how psyched are you to tap to see that image? Okay. It feels like people are about 20% higher than they were before. Um, so this is all to show you that like you can go from like a little bit psyched to tremendously psyched in the span of like a minute or two, just based on the experience that you go through. And now let's see what happens when you tap that image. Boom, 7 days free. Unlock the photos and stories. So now you're super high psyched. You hit this page and it offers you 7 days free to unlock the photo that you wanted to see on the previous page. So how many of you would like want to hit that right now, right? It's very compelling. And so the reason I go through this flow is not that everyone's site is exactly like this. This is very consumer, very teen, very entertaining. But I do think everyone has an experience where the user starts out with some level of psych, and you have an opportunity to get that level higher and higher and higher before giving them the difficult negative psych experience that you need them to do to convert or sign up or get set up with your site. So you see what this did here, it got your psych higher and higher and higher, and then it puts you in at a very high psych level to the conversion step of actually deciding to pay for this app. So this is something that we can all do for all of our apps. So why did I come up with the Psych framework? It was to solve this problem. The problem was talking about growth trade-offs. And the reason is that we often lack detailed language. We say, I think this page is complicated, or I don't like, I don't think this page will convert well. But often we're discussing emotions and not specifics. And I realized that when it comes down to it, our emotions are really just aggregated reactions to the individual elements of the page. So instead of talking about our high level emotions, let's talk about the specific elements and how they make us feel that helps us understand how it could potentially convert users and get them psyched or not. So first you have to understand what I call the psych framework. So what we just did right there was look at our psych gas tank from 0 to 100 and think to ourselves, how psyched am I right now? How filled up with energy for this experience am I right now? And every element of the page and everything you go through in this experience will either add positive psych, where you're more excited to go through the experience, or do negative psych, which takes away your energy from the experience. Negative psych isn't always bad. It's like friction, as we call it, but you have to use the negative psych on things that really matter and not waste it. And maybe even more uniquely for growth, everyone knows that you should make things easier, make the button bigger, take out steps in the flow, less negative psych. But rarely do people talk about adding positive psych to the flow that really get your users excited to do whatever you're having them do. So let's look at another example that's kind of fun. This is an old version of the Match.com landing page. And so I'm just going to go through the psych elements of this page. So the first thing you see, of course, is attractive people. And you're like, yes, I'm here for a dating site, and so I want to see attractive people. Then you see this social proof kind of number one in dates, relationship, and marriage. You're like, great, I'm looking probably for one of those. And then it's got this um, default form that says, I am a woman seeking a man. And so that either matches with the person who's coming in, they feel met, like, yes, that's who I am, or that might actually be what the person who's showing up is looking for. Like, I'm a man seeking a woman, so I'm glad that there's women seeking men here. Alternatively, you can fill it out to some other factors pretty quickly, but at least start with something that matches the number of users. And then the ages are defaulted. That probably is a decent age range for their target demographic. And then it's a blank zip code. So that is a little bit of work. You have to actually use the keyboard to type it out. But when you type in that zip code, you can feel high confidence that what you're going to see next is going to be around you, which makes it more relevant. And then the button isn't submit or next or continue, it's view photos. You're literally clicking a button that allows you to view photos even more in depth. It might feel like you're unlocking this experience. So everything on this page really contributes to the positive psych of this page. And even if you came in at like a 30 psych, you're probably boosted up to like a 40 or 50 by the elements of this page. So it's kind of a fun exercise to think, what if it wasn't optimized? What if, you still had the match logo, but you took out the cute singles, you took out the fact that they're hidden, you took out like the default for women, men, took out the default for the age. So all you really had is the search criteria and a submit button. This experience, I would submit that as you come in, it would actually, from 30 psych, maybe drop you down to like 10 psych. So maybe some people get through it, but it really takes the energy out of you as you go through it, and it doesn't inspire you at all. And the reason I give this extreme example is that, we have to think about the sites and experiences we build. Is every pixel contributing to positive psych? And even the things that are work possibly contributing to positive psychs via their defaults and via how we communicate them, like the age setup here? Or is it one of these things where it's more of a default setup where it's asking the user to do the work and asking the user to like imagine what's good about this experience? So you can think about Psych not just on a per page basis and per element page basis, but also each page throughout your flow. So it could be that as you sign up, that takes a little Psych away. That might be a negative Psych experience to type in your email, type in your password, maybe invalidate your email address. And it might be more work to set up as you go through the flow, and you want to be careful not to use up too much Psych along the way. But hopefully you reach some kind of setup moment that they say, yes, this is awesome, I'm set up. Okay, I have to do a little more work. And then you reach an aha moment before they run out of Psych energy where they say, oh, this is great. And after that, they use it and love it more and more, and then they're off into the races. So, you can think about it on a flow basis as well. As I said before, it's not just a question of like, the minimum negative psych. You want to have negative psych, but make sure it's really valuable, and then have enough positive psych in front of it in the flow that by the time they get to the negative psych, they have the energy to actually get through it. So one question I always get is, what do these numbers mean? Like, what's a plus 10? What's a minus 5? We had some of them, these numbers here. And to be totally honest, these numbers are a little bit arbitrary. They're not like scientifically calibrated. But if you think of your whole scale as being 0 to 100 of the least and most psyched you could ever be for all time, then like making a 3%, 2% difference in that maybe is reasonable for one particular element of the flow. Also, the really important thing is really just what are the positive psych elements, what are the negative psych elements of the page. So one thing I encourage teams to do is print out their pages and maybe take two different markers and mark positive and negative psych that they see on the page as they go through the flow. And even just flagging positive and negative psych starts lots of great discussions on your team, or it's a great exercise for your users. If you can get some users and actually print these things out and see which things they reacted to in which way, that can really help you understand how they're perceiving your experience. Okay, let's go through an Airtable case study. That's where I used to work 2 jobs ago. Um, and Airtable starts out with this homepage, connect everything, achieve anything. So this is going to be a little bit of an exercise for you all. I'm going to flip through these slides, and then later we're actually going to go through like the psych elements of this. So, just as an exercise at home, try to find a few like positive, negative psych elements from these slides as I go through them. Okay, and this is actually all the way into the site. Um, I think I've skipped over onboarding here. Okay, we're gonna go back to onboarding in a sec. Um, but this is the actual page itself, and you can think about what are like the positive or negative psych elements of this. Okay. And we're going to come back to it in just a second, I believe. So the when you're thinking about your product, one important thing is to think about like where are you on the spectrum of candy, vitamin, painkiller? Are you something that's very high intent and people already want it, and you're a painkiller, or is it something that's kind of a nice to have where people enjoy it, and maybe a subset of them eventually turn into the rabid people who really find it to be a painkiller, or are you something that's more entertainment value? And this is important because it changes how you think about your site curve. Um, oh, I got these a little out of order, my mistake. So now actually this is that page we saw before. We're gonna get back to that vitamin painkiller thing in a sec. So getting into the flow, um, I don't know if people can speak up or talk to me, but can people make this interactive? Did people find psych on the flow that they want to highlight, or should I just keep reading? Maybe I'll just keep reading. Okay. Um, So if you actually go into this particular page and you start looking at the psych of this page, you might start out with say 40 psych because someone told you that Airtable is awesome. You're going to come check it out. And then you see the good, clean design. That gets you a little bit more excited. You're like, this is probably a great page, a great site if it's got such great design. But then you see the vague value prop, like connect everything, achieve anything. Like, what does that really mean? And so that kind of gets you less psyched. You don't know if this is for you. But then as you scroll down and you see these views below the fold, you see like Gantt charts and even farther below, calendar and Kanban boards. Then you realize, oh, this is pretty cool. And then you see some social validation there in the center of like Medium and Netflix use this site. And so you say, okay, this could be something interesting. So overall, your site goes up as you exit this experience and start getting into the account creation flow. For account create, there is a form to fill out, and we really strongly encourage work email. So both those might be a bit negative psych, but there is clean design, and there's kind of this nice like locked view where you see what you're getting behind, and so that might encourage people to do it. And then sign up with Google is also very friendly. People like to do that. That might be positive psych. There's a little bit negative psych of asking what team you're on. It slows you down, but some people might like it, and at least we let you skip. Then we do ask you who your collaborators are up front, which is a little bit early in the flow and slows down some people for sure. But I think it also communicates that Airtable is a collaborative site. Even if people don't fill it out, they know for later that they could come back and collaborate here. And there's going to be a percent of users who do fill this out and instantly have collaborators, which can actually help them onboard with the site. And then this is an interesting example of something that really helps some people and doesn't help others. So a bunch of people come to Airtable with their own data. And if you upload that data on this page and get it into Airtable, the experience is way more compelling because Airtable in many ways is like a super spreadsheet. So if you upload your data and you see it in this better spreadsheet format, you almost always fall in love with it instantly and you want to use Airtable. But not everyone has that data. Not everyone has a spreadsheet that they're ready to upload or ready to paste in. And so for most people, this is just a speed bump and they hit skip. But for the people it works for, it really works for them. And then some people also like to start with templates. So since earlier I said I was a product person, here it says, do you want to have a product launch template or user research or something else? Or you can just start your own base from scratch. Then we land in on the homepage. And actually, what I did when I built this flow is I replicated all those same tools on the homepage. So in case you missed them, you just hit skip through them. You have all those same tools of start from scratch, upload, or start with templates, all in this one place that you can work from. So I think people love like getting into the tool and they're like, okay, I'm at this clean like start home, excited to get ready to do this. Although I'm still a little bit confused as exactly like what my next step is. That could be a little clearer on this page. So that's the overall funnel going through Psych with Airtable. If you want to see more breakdowns of the Psych framework applied to funnels, you can check out a site called growth.design. And they've actually really taken my Psych framework and run with it. They've applied it to Calm and I think Airbnb and like a bunch of different sites and looked at how the site goes up and down as you go through the experience. One thing we want to chat about was how mixpanel can help you with some of these things. So I think we all know what mixpanel is. It's a great analytics tool for understanding how people are going through your site and how they're using it. And it gives you a lot of insight into the psych of your site by looking at some of the conversion funnels. So in mixpanel, you can do a conversion funnel where you say, step one is view home, step two is create account, et cetera, et cetera. And these are actually the kind of things that we saw just in the previous Airtable flow. And so you can look at these drop-offs at every part. And the drop-off itself can give you some indication of the overall positive and negative psych of the page. And then you can also talk to users to get their estimation of positive and negative psych and see how that matches your drop-offs. Nothing is going to be like perfect with this. It's really a question of using it as a map to figure out potential optimization areas. So, right here where it drops so much off for create account, you might think, are there ways I can increase the psych of this to help them get over that hump of creating the account? And then, farther along, you find that even this far down the funnel, there's still a lot of people dropping off at complete onboarding. When if you made it this far, you really should succeed there. So, is there something wrong with that particular step? And so you can kind of map out your psych scores and the funnel scores at the same time. Also, one thing mixpanel lets you do is break down any report into multiple cohorts and segments. So you could see that, if you came in from LinkedIn, you could potentially be, higher intent and complete more actions. But if you come in from organic, then you're slightly different intent structure. Or in this case, actually, organic might be a slightly higher intent because they have less drop off. And then you could, imagine your psych score being, similar along the same path for this. Okay, here are 4 more ways to explore psych ideas and to get ideas for optimizing your flow once you get an idea of the initial starting psych. One thing I like to do, I call the 10-foot look, where you push your chair 10 feet away from the screen and try to still figure out what's going on. It should be very obvious at a simplistic level, like what you should do on this page and what's happening. I really like the crossout test, where you print out the page and you sequentially cross out more and more of the text and UI items until the page is nonsensical, and then you uncross off the last few items. And so, for instance, if the title of your page is something like invite your friends to share photos, and you're running a photo sharing site, you realize that, oh, they probably know it's a photo sharing site, so I could just say invite your friends. But then you're like, well, who else are you going to invite besides your friends? I could just say invite. I could keep it really short and crisp, and that might be even more powerful than like more words or more UI elements. Minority report is super serving a minor use case. So it's not the majority of your users, but there might be a high intent minority that's still meaningful, like maybe 10 to 40%, that if you gave them a great experience, that could actually move your overall numbers. One of my favorite examples of this is like importing or transferring over from a competitor. So, if you run Zendesk, it could be that you are previously using some other customer service tool and you're actually switching to Zendesk. And so if there's a specific part of the flow that helps you understand or do that switch, that could massively accelerate those users, even if everyone else isn't affected. So sometimes we often want to optimize for the base case of a brand new user and the every person, but sometimes it can really benefit to super serve a sub case. Also, those people might have they might have different psych scores. For instance, if someone came in for a competitor's product, they might be really excited about certain deeper features or your differentiated features. Or if they came in with never having this product before, they might be less psyched about those differentiators because they don't know the space as well. So really think about, for any given part of your experience, how you super serve different customers. Table flip is just optimizing for doing the opposite of whatever you thought the person would do. So you saw in that flow, even if you had skip, we drop you on a page where you can still do all those actions of starting something new, use a template, or upload. And so table flip is one of the encouragements to, even if the person doesn't do it the right way the first time, trying to make sure that they can always get back on track. Yeah, so going back in the Painkiller ideal, like this high emotional fuel is mostly on the right side. It's mostly just entertainment on the more low intent candy side. So what that means is if you have a Painkiller, people often come in a lot higher intent. Like if someone's showing up to like solve a real business problem that they need solved this week, and their boss has told them they need to figure this out, they are high intent. They will read your information. They will try to figure it all out. They'll set up their account, and they'll really go through a lot of heartache to try to get this thing working. And their effort might drop down, but eventually it'll come back up and be very steady. Whereas a vitamin style product will often come in with much lower intent, and you'll really have to work with them and get that intent up and up and up and get their psych level up before you can really monetize or do anything with them. Whereas the Painkiller product starts so high that you might be able to monetize or like get them to do something more heavyweight, like, take a call or do a demo pretty early in the flow. So you see this oftentimes with high intent products where all the people who find the product want to buy it. Like Calm, the meditation app, is like this way. When you actually search for meditation and install it, there's a pretty good chance you're ready to buy immediately. And so they actually just put purchase front and center. Whereas other things like a SaaS app, they don't even ask you to purchase maybe until months into using the product because they know it's like a very more complicated high intent purchase. And this is something from Reforge. It's called the Elmer framework. Really, it's the idea that decisions are made first with emotion and then justified with logic. and then they require your own motivation to get over kind of like an activation energy hill, and then ideally there's some reward to incentivize you to do the action again. So this framework really gets at that emotion part, generating that initial generating that initial desire, and then to some degree with motivation of like helping you get over that hill once you're getting close. Cool. So that's my presentation. Would love to have people's thoughts or questions, or any questions that's specific to your own personal experience of Psych in your web experience or mobile experience. Can we take questions
Can
somehow?
we take questions somehow?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Darius. I love it. I love the framework. Never heard it before. So it's just like thinking how to apply to different things. What are the examples that they have? Like, do you have in mind or have you experienced with non like mobile or non digital products and more with physical products as well?
Yeah, with physical products.
Yeah, with physical products, I think
a lot of the same things.
I think a lot of the same things still.
So you still have to think about
you still have to think about
how high intent the user
how
is,
high intent the user is,
and then how do you get that
and then
intent
how do you
higher
get that intent higher?
until you actually get the person to convert for your product. So I mean, there's a silly example, but when you go to the store, on the shelves you might see brightly colored products that catch your eye and they get you someone excited about the product at all. And then once they caught your eye, you read the product and say, like, it's got some pitch on it. It's like, oh, this is the fastest acting one, or this is the most powerful one, or whatever it is that gets you even more excited about it and meets you where you are. And then with that, you might actually pick up the product and then go to buy it, and then you need a price that aligns with the level of intent that is created for you, and then you purchase it. And so there's a few different things with that. With any product you have, getting that language right is incredibly important. I always encourage people to use their customers' words. And so, if you're selling a painkiller, don't say it's, the highest, medical grade painkiller out there, because that's not how your customers think about it. Say it like, ends your headache in 15 minutes, something like that, which is like the way that someone would actually talk about your product to a friend of theirs and say why they love the product so much. And so, all those kinds of things you can apply not only to websites and mobile apps, but also to physical products. One of the things I also encourage people to do generally, and maybe it applies even more to physical products, is to think about how high intent and pre-convinced your user is when they come in. Like, do they show up ready to buy, or do they show up wondering what the heck your product is? And depending on which of those you are, it's a very different set of next steps. If they've never heard of your product, they don't have something like it in their lives, you need to educate them on why they need this product, why it's valuable, and even like maybe a different lifestyle choice that would necessitate this product. And once you've educated them on that new lifestyle, then your product fits right into it. If they're already using a product just like yours and yours is a little bit better, then you have to educate them on like why it's better. And it's a very different educational period. And it might take more or less time. It might have more or less steps. You might need to do a free demo, or give them like a free version of the product. Like a lot of innovative products you've seen in the past, where you can either like try before you buy, or you have free refunds. That's because people might not know the value of the product. But if they know the value of the product, it's less likely that they get a free refund, because like, they understand what they're getting. So just think about like, what's that Psych journey before, like as they're learning about the product, and then even as they're paying for the product, and even after they bought the product, the Psych journey continues.
Is there any other question
Is there any
that
other question that
someone else would like to make in the physical spaces?
Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So, do you have any examples of that intro you gave us, in which you have the conversation, and then there's a photo of the potential baby crying in the basement. Um, in terms of certain businesses or services that can apply that kind of hype creation inside their funnels, because I think that's something brilliant and something that would work perfectly in a conversation. And I see, for example, Bumble or Tinder nailing it that way. But I just can't see how it can be done in SaaS products, for example, or consumer based products.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite SaaS products that does do this well is a product called Litmus. And what it does, it helps you test your emails before you send them out. And they really meet the customer where they are, like in the mental headspace. So Litmus, I think their website used to say, maybe it still does, it says like never send a broken email again. And that really punches a user like where they are, because most people using Litmus have sent out like broken emails to, 1 million, 10 million users, because there was something they didn't realize about the system. There wasn't really a good way to test it. And so they hit go and they sent out this broken email to a bunch of people, and now they're really sad about it. And so Litmus helps people test their email, render it in different browsers, and just make sure that the thing works in all cases. And so that's how they try to like increase the psych of users. That's what's called in NLP negative matching. So it's saying it's like negative unmatching. It's like never have this bad thing happen to you. Whereas a lot of sites are positive matching, where it's like have this good thing happen to you. So one thing you have to figure out is like for your particular users, are they trying to not make a bad thing happen, or are they trying to make a good thing happen? Obviously, in some ways it's the same thing, but where is their headspace at? So I just bring that up because that is a way that they have taken people from the beginning to like a higher psych place that gets them through that funnel. It's not a multi-step experience, which is maybe what you're speaking to. Another example that's actually kind of the inverse of this in some ways, or a non-obvious example, is Dropbox. Right after you sign up, it immediately makes you install the Dropbox client onto your computer. Now, on one hand, that's like a massive negative psych that happens immediately after sign up. And so it's like a terrible experience in the moment. But what that means is that for the maybe 30% of people who successfully install the Dropbox client on their computer, those people have a persistent connection to Dropbox, and they can forever drag files in, right click, get the file link, share it with people, drag like huge videos in and have them upload in the background. They just have an amazing experience. So it's one of those things where, it's a big kind of tax up front. But once you do that, the returns are just kind of unlimited because you have this persistent surface area. So that's an interesting version of the psych framework where you actually use up a bunch of your psych early to build an ongoing relationship that allows you to generate psych on an ongoing basis. And I've actually seen that a bunch of places where it'll be a quote unquote like hard onboarding, but that actually sets you up for a persistently great ongoing experience. Like, we all use WhatsApp, right? And so like, WhatsApp, the first thing you have to do is validate your phone number. That's no fun. It'd be more fun to chat with friends or to see cool features. But by validating your phone number, you can now receive WhatsApp messages. And so it's just fundamental to the system. So, it's not just about like fun, positive moments that like get you more and more psyched. But there are some other examples, I think, of that kind of thing. Like sometimes there's longer onboardings where it will actually tell you more and more about the service. One of my favorite ones, this is more B2C to your point, is Noom. Noom is kind of like a weight loss app where you go through multiple pages and ask you questions and it gives you feedback. And it's kind of like a very entertaining form. The pure B2B context, I think a lot of that ends up being like in a few places. One place is a lot of B2B apps have like solutions on top. Like it's either four different industries or solutions. And when you click it, you get a drop down of these like pretty meticulously made pages that are specific to all these different cases. So for me, I might click it and it says like product. So I click it and it tells me everything about how this product can help like a person who works in the product industry. And Airtable has this where it's got this whole solutions panel. So that's one of the version of like the B2B psych channels, is that you have these high intent users who will click around some, and they click and they find the solution that matches them, and they read through all the data. Unlike consumer people, they will actually sit and read page after page. And one of the highest intent flags of a logged out user is actually going to the pricing page, because they'll often go there to see, can I afford this? Does it have the features I need at the plan level that matches me? Am I a match for this kind of level of product? And so, that in some ways, a logged out marketing page ends up being kind of like the psych funnel for a lot of B2B websites.
Thank you, Darius.
Thank you,
We
Darius.
have another
We have another
question
about
about examples for increasing psych on a regular process, like rather than the onboarding. Do you have any example of how could we increase psych in another funnel that is not onboarding?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, like some super simple examples of ways to increase psych for kind of, with no user effort is, I think we've all played with like messenger products where if you send a heart or you said I love you, it'll do some kind of animation. Or use Asana where when you complete your first task, I think it'll do like a big like happy birthday style like confetti and like stars shooting through the screen. And those kinds of like slight user joy moments, they are the reward part of the framework, where it helps you understand that, oh, you did something, it's exciting, and we appreciate it, and kind of give you that like positive moment where you're like, oh, this is fun, this is cool, I'm going to use this again. Other positive psych moments as you use the product often, frankly, just look like great product. Like Airtable, people find that when they use it, very often, like they're not exactly sure how it works, but they try out this and they try out that, and then they find that it actually does work, and they paste in data and it actually looks correct, and they click something and drag it, and it actually drags the way they want it. And so just having the product work quite well can be that positive ongoing psych. I think another thing that can be positive psych as you use a product is when you feel like really met in how you're using the product. What I mean by that is, you feel like the product is kind of listening to you. I recently got an email from Fishbowl that said pretty much like, you're not clicking on these emails, we're going to turn them off if you don't click on them. I was a little bit harshly worded. It felt a little bit antagonistic, frankly. But at some level, I was like, yeah, I don't click on these emails. Maybe you should stop sending them. And it was nice that they were actually thoughtful enough that they had an algorithm that watched my behavior and adapted the site functionality to match how I wanted to use the site. And so, and if I did want to keep the emails, I could just click on the email and that would kind of reset my timer for turning this email off automatically. So stuff like that, I think, you can really make someone feel connected and like they're really valued on the site. I think another thing is helping them grow to the next level of whatever your site interface is. So, for something like Asana, maybe you might start out just using it as a to-do list. But if, over time it gave you pop-ups and it gave you helper information and marketing emails that kind of grew your feature usage, and you got more and more powerful features that, you could use to accelerate your business over time, that kind of thing can generate more positive psych as well. I'm trying to think of other ones that are really like the demo as far as just giving examples. I mean, one thing that's happening right now is a bunch of companies are launching new AI features. And so they'll launch those new AI features and they'll often give you like a pretty sweet demo of like how to use it, how it can change your workflow. And then elements like that are also like positive psych. Maybe they're like, just great product. But they're done in such a way that they're, one of the things I try to do is with feature announcements, whenever there's text, try to make sure the first 3 to 5 words of that text is truly compelling, and make sure that like if you have like 3 bullet points, the first and second bullet point are the absolute most compelling, and then the first 3 to 5 words of those bullet points are the most compelling and juicy. So you don't want to do something where you say, you now have the power to share photos, because now you have to read the whole sentence before you get to actual good part about it. So you want to flip that around and say, share photos with everyone in your network, you have the power, or something like that. But making sure the first 3 to 5 words is really crisp and immediately gets a gut reaction from people. The reason I say that is because when people go through your experience, they're often busy or distracted, and they'll just scan it really quickly. Like I think of it kind of like a samurai chop, like down your screen. There's like, what's there? And so they might see one word here, one word there, one image, a form or something. And then they kind of decide, what part of this do I want to look at more deeply, or do I want to just move on, right? Because we all like swipe through things so quickly. And so if they see a few words that really are compelling, it's like share photos, and that's what they came here to do. Or it's like never send a broken email, and they're like, oh, that's what I'm here for. You have to make sure that those words really like hit them in the gut. And those are the words they scan. So if the most compelling part of your product is buried in a long sentence that takes up 4 lines, like a lot of users, probably 80% are never going to read that sentence. Probably 99% aren't going to read that sentence. So that's also a way I think of like Psych optimizing, even just like day-to-day flows. Another one that's similar to that, I find myself saying this a lot, is like give them benefit-focused language. Don't tell them the how. So oftentimes I see products where the heading of the page is, like, create new topic, or it's, register your account. It's all these things that like no one really wants to do that in the abstract. No one woke up this morning saying they need another account on the internet, right? Everyone wakes up this morning being like, I want to get X done now, right? With the minimum of effort, the minimum of account setup. And so, if you have some photo sharing site, it probably shouldn't say register your account. It might be say something like, set up your photo sharing account, or like save photos to the site, or see friends' photos by registering an account, or signing up, or at least sign up to see friends' photos. And so that like compelling verbiage is still in the first 5 words, and you can get the user excited. But just telling someone the how of something, like add, remove, sign up, set up, it's really hard to get people excited about that. So really, Psych optimizing every little part of your flow can really be valuable. I'll just give one more nugget, because it's hard to go back and forth on this a little bit, is I always try to like keep the language coherent throughout the flow. So if you have a really good ad, make the landing page similar to the ad, and even make the onboarding similar to the landing page. Really try to carry the language through. Once you get a few good nouns and a few good adjectives, try to use the same ones everywhere, even to the point where it's like mind numbing. You're like, oh, we already told them about that. Yeah, if you're overwhelmed by the repetition, other people are probably just getting it. And so really, one thing I do with companies oftentimes is I'll work with them on kind of like nomenclature architecture, like really like nouns and verbs. Like what are your like 1 to 3, nouns, and 1 to 3 verbs that describe everything you do. Yeah, other questions? Those are great.
Yes, really interesting. Thank you, Darius. We have another question from the audience. How would you drive Psych up when you know you're calling customers that already have a provider and the switching cost is very high? So we usually have like very like old companies who already like the switching cost is very high here in Latin America. Do you have any recommendations for making Psych like drive up?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few different parts of that. I think the first part is like getting them excited, and then maybe the second part is about the switching costs, let's say. And so getting them excited, you really have to dig and find like what are your highest Psych pitches, right? Like what are the words that are really going to make words or visuals, if you're presenting to them, that are really going to get them excited about this thing. And so, it could be that it's lower cost, it could be that it's better for their business, it could be that it's just the new and modern thing that they're not going to have to replace again. Try to figure out what those things are that are truly compelling. And one of the best places to find those is from your existing customers. Get them all in a customer advisory board, or meet with them time to time and just say, why did you switch? What do you love about the service? Why wouldn't you switch back? And hopefully they've got some really compelling reasons. And those reasons, and especially the language for those reasons, hopefully is going to be things that can really convert your next batch of customers and get them excited. So that's kind of the compelling side of like really just make an amazing sales pitch with your customer's language to help get them excited about trying out your product. Then there's the switching cost side of it. And a lot of that comes down to like how much effort is every step in the process, and how do you reduce the effort for that step, or give them more Psych energy to complete that step with. So, one thing I found really to be helpful is to actually, for difficult flows or for difficult processes, is to take out a real piece of paper and then actually just write down with a pen every step in this flow. So it's like, okay, what happens if they did want to switch over? First thing they need to do is like call up their admin and see, what their current setup is and get all the stats, and then send that to us so that we can set up our, server. And then the next thing they need to do is move over all their new traffic, and then move over all their old traffic, and then switch over all their backup systems, and just like write it all out. And it's the thing about it is it's often very painful when you first write it all down. You realize how many steps it is. You realize why people find this psychologically difficult. But then after you do that, you find two things. One, many of these steps you can make easier. You're like, you know what? Many of our customers are scared of this step, but they all do it in the same way. Why don't we make a playbook or like show them how easy it is for that step to be complete? And then even if a step is hard, or even if you only got it so good, even just laying out all on a page, being like, look, migration is a little bit of work. It's these 5 steps and we can help you with each step. And you're like, oh, those are painful. But just the fact that like you're on top of it, you're thinking it through, you're going to help me, that makes it seem like digestible and possible. The other thing is trying to think about, doing kind of like the sales process for the migration process. So it's like, okay, what would be the trigger events that would let someone know that like this is going to be an okay process, right? What if you said, okay, we've had clients switch in under 1 week. You're like, oh, this must not be that hard if some clients do it in under 1 week. And maybe that's only 5% of clients, but it can't be that hard if people are doing it that fast, right? That gives people hope. Or you say like, of the people who actually do the switch, only 5% switch back. And you're like, oh, so that's a lot of work. But like once I do the work, it's very likely that I'll stick with it. So I'm not sure which is the exact part that's going to be the most compelling one for your particular flow, but like I would try to think about these different aspects and really build into a sales pitch. One thing that's related to some of the ideas I bring up here is a book called The Pyramid Principle by Barbara Minto. You can also just look up the pyramid principle and a summary of it, but it's a way of communicating in like kind of a hierarchical or pyramid style that really helps you communicate with people successfully in like short time spans. So that could be helpful here too when you're trying to convince people of something complex.
Interesting. Thank you, Darius. We have another question regarding to like selling and scaling SaaS. Taking into account that in the region, in Latin America, we lack of distribution channels, as in contrast to the US, like maybe Bird Hunt or Vendor or other platforms that serve as distribution channels for SaaS. How important do you think it is to build our own distribution channels for scaling SaaS? And which recommendation would you give to someone trying to scale SaaS in the region at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, platforms are the kind of thing, in general they're often very hard to build, or you need like one specific, very powerful use case to build them, but they're incredibly valuable to both the owner and even the ecosystem once you built it. So I'd say, yeah, if you can build it, do it. I think, the advice I'd give to someone trying to build a platform in Latin America, best as I know it, would be to, I have a friend, James Courier from NFX, which is a seed investment group. And one thing that they do is they always look for what they call the white hot center of a market. The white hot center is the part of the market or the customer base that's transacting at a much higher volume and is much more advanced oftentimes than other people in the market. So if you're trying to build kind of like a marketplace of Latin America, I would first try to find the people on both sides of that marketplace, like if that's startups and vendors or investors or whoever it is. Try to find the ones that are absolutely doing the most volume and going at the highest speed and really desperately need what you're building, and try to locate them just manually, just like find them on LinkedIn or meetups, what have you, and try to get them on the product first, because they'll give you the best feedback, they'll connect you to everyone else, and they'll really help you kind of get the thing kickstarted. Also look for places where, I think the best marketplaces start with like hundreds on both sides of them. Like you don't want tens of thousands because it's hard to get that kind of scale very quickly. And you don't want like 10 or 20 because like the parties can just go directly to each other. And so, if you find like a sub-market, like, the major cities or something that has like hundreds of people on each side of the market, and just try to crack that first, like Uber in San Francisco, or Airbnb, wherever it started, probably also San Francisco. That's a great place to start. And then as you conquer one market, you can branch out to the other ones.
Amazing, thank you. And where do you think someone like leading growth at a scaling startup stage, where do you think, or where would you recommend this leader to focus on scaling SaaS, given that these channels doesn't exist already?
Yeah, if you don't have channels already, you have to get a little more creative with it. So one thing that I've seen more and more in a lot of these B2B contexts for getting customers, there are the main channels, right? Like paid LinkedIn, Facebook, Google Ads. So those are still good. But there's kind of a next level of it is if you have a more niche product, like one of the companies that I'm part of or an investor in, they help people use their video cameras to automatically detect objects. Like it's called Spot.ai, and they can turn kind of a dumb video camera into kind of like a smart Nest Cam that tells you when someone opens a door or if like someone comes into the room, that kind of thing. So one thing that they found is that if they can locate like property owners who have cameras who need to like watch those cameras, then they can convert at much higher rates. And so they did some like great research on like finding data for property owners who have this many, different properties around and trying to really find their core customers by different data signals online. And that's, I feel like, a cutting edge way of finding those customers. So for instance, if you have, hourly employee management software, like trying to find a list of all the companies that would be a really good match for it. Maybe it's companies with hourly employees, of at least like 100 hour employees, but less than 1,000 might be like a great match for your software. And trying to find somewhere online a list of these kind of companies, and then specific people in that company to contact, and really doing like targeted reach out with ABM. So that's one way I've seen people expand when they didn't have a whole lot of other tools. The other thing is trying to find places where the people that you want to talk to cluster, and not just the places and people, but also the trigger events if possible. Like what's the moment when you realize what's the moment when your customer realizes they need your product? And can you somehow get into that moment? So, kind of silly example or extreme silly example, but they talk about the lawyers who would follow, ambulances, right? Because like if you follow an ambulance, you're sure to find an injured party at the other end. And so that's an extreme example of it, but that's like trigger-based marketing where your customer has some kind of trigger event that means they need your service. One other one that I saw that I really liked is trying to look at job postings. And if someone posts a job like, hey, we're hiring like 10 customer service people, then like why not offer them customer service software? And so I think, if you try to look in the world and try to find companies that are reaching these trigger moments, then that can be a real opportunity to reach out with your product and service and like help them with a problem that they're currently trying to solve. That's top of mind for them.
Interesting. Thank you, Darius. I think that's really valuable for the region. We don't have more questions in the digital channels. I don't know if someone in the physical meetups would like to ask one more question. Okay, I guess we're done. Darius, thank you very much for giving us your time. It is very valuable for many people and companies in Latin America to learn from what you're sharing and all your experience. How could we reach out to you or find more content about your experience and what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm Darius MC on Twitter, and like everything else, LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads. So just look up Darius MC or Darius C, and I'd probably be one of the first people to pop up for you. Yeah, I would love if you want to like tweet at me and ask other questions or tell me what you liked or disliked about the presentation. Always love to hear feedback.
Amazing. We will share all your social media with the community. Thank you very much, Darius, for the talk, and we hope to hear from you in the future and everything you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great to chat with you all. Have a good one.
Darius, quickly before you go, can let us take a snapshot of everyone.
You want to do a snapshot with your psych score? Okay.
Thank you very much, Darius.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darius. Y ahora sí, todos, un saludo, a tomar una cervecita y a janguear un rato. Gracias a todos por unirse.
Eso, bueno, gracias.
Gracias, bye.
Gracias. Abrazo.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos.
Abrazo. Bueno, bye.
Tómensela. Ah, ya se salieron ahí. A ver.